Change is inevitable, and unfortunately for most of us, we're going to be seeing a change in our electricity bills very soon. Let's dive in and talk about some of the changes that are happening for me and how it's going to affect my electricity usage with electric cars. Let's take a look. Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Between the EVs, or whatever, Garage Talk. I still don't have a name for this segment of my channel. But we have a change coming, and it's something that we've had coming for a while, but it's finally starting to take place, and that is electricity rates. So let's just dive in a little bit to a backstory of my electricity company that I use now, and what happened and why we're moving to these new electricity rates starting in 2025. So the electricity company that we use here in South Carolina, or at least in my area of South Carolina, is called Santee Cooper. Now, Santee Cooper is actually a state-owned electricity company. So it's actually owned by the state of South Carolina, which some of you might think, well, that's probably terrible. And some of you might probably think, well, that's probably pretty good, actually, because it's government run. Well, it's really neither, actually. It doesn't really help you or hinder you, but actually, our electricity rates have been pretty low here for the past few years. And the reason for that has been due to a class action lawsuit against Santee Cooper that happened quite a few years ago. And as part of the settlement of this class action lawsuit, well, they had to freeze their electricity rates for 3 years. So for 3 years, we had the same electricity rates, and they were unable to be increased based on any factors. And here we are now at the end of those 3 years, and we're already starting to get proposals on what to expect coming next year with our electricity rates. So let's just break it down for you real quick. If you haven't followed the channel, I'll kind of tell you exactly what our electricity rates are and how they work, and kind of give you an idea of what we're changing from and what we're changing to. So right now, we have on-peak, off-peak seasons. We don't have on-peak, off-peak hours like a lot of companies. So our on-peak months are June, July, August, and September. And then our off-peak months are the other 8 months that we have throughout the year. And our rates are as follows. In the off-peak season, we pay about 10 cents per kilowatt hour. And in the on-peak season over summertime, we are paying about 12 cents per kilowatt hour. Now, these are extremely cheap electricity rates compared to most of the rest of the country. Now, what I did about 4 years ago to prepare for this was actually put solar on my roof. So about 4 years ago, we ended up putting a new roof on our house, which gave us the perfect opportunity to put solar panels on that brand new roof. So we have just under 6 kilowatt of capable energy production with these solar panels. And so we're really utilizing that throughout the day. But most of it was being sent back to the grid, considering that we weren't being home most of the day. We were at work. And so we would produce and then we would send back. And we would end up getting only 1/3 of the cost of that electricity versus if we were to buy it. So if we were paying 12 cents a kilowatt hour, we were selling it for 4. And that was just the way that Santee Cooper did their thing, was you only get that much. They don't offer any type of like net metering plan or anything like that where you get like a 1-to-1 ratio. There was no option. It's just you get 1/3, period. So that didn't sit well with me for a couple of years. When I finally decided about a year ago, back in 23, I'm gonna buy some Tesla Powerwalls. And we put in 2 Tesla Powerwalls on our house. So now we can create the energy with our solar, we can store it in a battery, and then we can use it when we need it. Now, from a financial standpoint, this doesn't really change all that much. I mean, having an 8 cent per kilowatt hour swing to save on a daily basis doesn't really change much. I mean, you figure if you're using maybe an extra 10 to 15 kilowatt hours that you're saving in the battery and then reusing, you're only saving like $1 a day, maybe a little bit more than that if you're lucky. So you're not really saving that much more money every single month. But there is a savings, which was part of the reason why we did it. Plus, we live in a hurricane-prone area. So in the event that we ever had a major outage, we can at least produce our own electricity, store it in the battery, and utilize it in our home if there was a major grid outage in this area, which was one of the benefits also for having a home battery system. Now, let's dive into what we're going to be seeing starting in April 1st, 2025. So I got an email last week from Sandy Cooper saying, these are the proposed, these are not finalized yet, but these are the proposed solutions for helping out basically their finances. Because let's face it, after not being able to increase your rates for, like, I think it was at least 4 years, maybe even 5 years. And so what they want to do is start bringing back a different proposed rate for this particular electrical conundrum, if you will. And so they proposed some new rates, and they are proposing on-peak, off-peak hours, and they're proposing a demand charge. Now, if you're not familiar with a demand charge, what that means is if you peak at a certain point of a certain amount of kilowatts, right? Not kilowatt hours, kilowatts, then you also get hit with a demand charge on top of your usage of electricity. Now, this is where something like a battery buffer will come in major, because that means that you can pull from the battery as much as possible without having to pull from the grid, which means that your demand charge will be pretty much nil at that point. And so what we have to see is how this works. Now I'm going to pull my phone out for some notes here, but I'll overlay some of the information on the screen for you to see. But they have a little calculator on their site that you can run. And here you can see the difference between our existing rate, which is RG17, and the proposed rate, which is the RG25. So right now you can see we have a base customer charge of $19.50 per month. That is pretty much every residential customer pays that customer charge. Now, I also, as a solar customer, I actually pay a standby fee, or I forget what they call it. I think it's called a standby fee on my bill every month, just because I have solar. Because I produce solar, they say that, well, you're producing solar, so you're not pulling as much from the grid, so you're not paying as much to support the infrastructure. Blah, 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 blah. It's a bunch of BS in my opinion. But I also pay that. But we're going to just not talk about that. We're going to ignore that and just move forward with what we see right here.
All right, so just a quick update on this section of the video about the standby charge and the metering charge. So we get charged a $2 a fee per month for a meter fee, they call it. I'm not really sure why. We get charged $2 to like rent the meter, I guess. And then we get charged that standby fee, which is like $4 and change per kilowatt of solar panels on the roof. So we have like 5.92 kilowatt of solar. It comes out to be like $25 and change a month. So between that and the metering fee, we're paying about another $27 a month out of pocket just because we're a solar customer. So that's something else that will potentially be wiped off of this, according to some research I'm just doing now as I'm editing this video, is that it looks like they're going to eliminate this standby charge and this metering charge at the same time, which is just automatically going to save us about $27 a month, give or take. So that alone is going to be a huge benefit to us, on top of being able to utilize the battery and all that stuff. Anyway, I just wanted to add that in as just a little addendum there for this video. So I just found that out and I thought that was really cool to share, so I wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that as well. But anyway, let's get back to the video.
So we have that customer charge of $19.50 a month, and then you can see we have our summer energy and our non-summer energy, 12 cents per kilowatt hour, 10 cents per kilowatt hour, as I said before. Then you see that there is a new proposed rate. And now this is coming directly from my particular bill. Now keep in mind that I haven't been doing anything to manipulate these numbers, because this is something that's just new to me. So this is just based on what they see my household using at this moment and in the past, and this is roughly what they estimate will be my new use. So based on this new proposed rate, a customer charge of $20 per month. So the customer charge only goes up 50 cents. Okay, no big deal. Then there's a demand charge, which is $10.03 per kilowatt. Now, let me explain exactly what this means. That means that if at any time your house pulls a specific amount of kilowatt energy, you will be charged $10.03 for that maximum kilowatt. So let's break down with an example. Let's say you are charging your car, right? And you're pulling 11 kilowatts of energy from that car. And then let's say you just happen to run the air conditioning, which is 3 kilowatts of energy. And then let's say you decide to run your oven, which is another 3 kilowatts of energy. Once again, we're just making up numbers here. So that totals 17 kilowatts of energy that you're using at one particular point in time. One particular point in time. That means that you'll be charged 17 times $10.03 as a demand charge for that month. That's $170 plus that you'd be charged just for having used all that energy at one particular time. So what they're expecting people to do, or what they're suggesting that you do, is that you move out and basically push out the demand that you're going to use. So if you're charging your car, don't charge your car at the same time that you're doing laundry, you're doing, dinner time, or whatever the case may be. Put that off into a new section of your day, basically, or schedule the car to happen overnight when you're not really using energy because you're sleeping. That is what that demand charge is forcing people to do, is to spread out over the course of time. Now, I'm all for balancing the grid and making sure that it's stable and make sure you don't have any blackouts or whatever. Now, we don't really typically have that issue here, but clearly there are seeing that there might be a reason for concern of that in the future. Now, the cool thing about this is that the energy charge is going down to just under 7 cents per kilowatt hour. So that's the cool thing, is now we're actually going to be paying less per kilowatt hour than we did before. But that demand charge is really going to hurt people. And so what are we going to do in this case? What are we going to do? What is the proper thing to do here when it comes to saving money on our electricity bill? Well, let's dive in a little bit more and talk about what they estimate my electricity cost to be. So right now, they're saying that my average bill is $76. Now, that is true because we have the solar, because we have the Powerwall. We're only paying $76 a month for electricity. It actually is quite a bit of savings compared to some people. And then you can see that the average bill, the new proposed rate, is $127. So we will be increasing our electricity bill based on these numbers by $50 a month. That is crazy. Now, it does show that because of that, I have an average peak demand of 7 kilowatts. So that would be roughly $70 a month that I would be spending just because of my peak demand, right? 7 kilowatts times $10 is roughly $70 and change. So if I can get that demand down every month to, let's say, 2 kilowatt, maybe even less than that, well, I can very significantly lower my electricity costs down every month and possibly be even lower than I am now because of the cheaper kilowatt hour rate. I hope you're all following this, and of course, if you have any questions, you can put them down in the comments below and I'll try to explain it a little bit better. But basically what's going on here is we're not only being charged by the amount of energy that we're using, but also the flow, the amount of energy that we're using at one time. So that means that you have to not only be worried about how much energy you're using throughout the month, but also how much energy you're using at a moment's notice. And this could be really not only confusing for a lot of people, but concerning. Because you can see just from my bill, which I have solar and I have a battery, like that is a major, major increase. So this is just my particular situation, and I do have a cheat code, unfortunately, and that cheat code is my Tesla Powerwalls. So you better believe that when this time comes in April of next year, that I will absolutely be tweaking my Powerwalls to work the most efficiently as possible. And so I'll be trying to charge those suckers up overnight trying to get the cheapest possible rate that I can, and making sure that I use that during the peak hours. Now, we didn't really talk about peak hours now, did we? Because there's also peak hours. So they estimate that there will be an average increase of 8.7% for residential people. So now they're saying 8.7%, but as we saw, some people like myself will be in excess of 40% increase based on my just normal usage of electricity. So that is number one, that's a little weird. Next, they have a three-part rate structure. So what they're showing here is to lower the energy charge, but then have a demand charge during specific peak use hours. So basically what this shows is that from the time of 6 to 9 a.m. in the winter and 3 to 6 p.m. in the summer, we will have a demand charge in place for those. So that's where the demand charge comes into place. What's going to happen here is that we have to do our best to try to not use electricity during those peak demand hours, because that is where the demand charge is going to come into play. So we have to make sure we charge up the Powerwalls before we hit these peak times. Once we get into those peak times, the goal is to use our Powerwalls and our solar pretty much solely and not use any demand peak during those hours. This is going to be a very interesting thing. And honestly, I'm not happy about this, but I'm kind of excited about this because that means that I can start utilizing my Powerwalls for more than just battery backup and saving a couple bucks a month on my electricity. At this point, we are significantly going to lower the cost of our electricity bill, because hopefully the idea is to charge up the Powerwalls at only 7 cents per kilowatt hour, use them while we are pretty much off-grid during the peak times of the day, and then once we get through those few hour windows a day using those batteries, then we could go back to just normal usage, which is going to be kind of cool and interesting, and I'm really curious to see how this affects me moving forward. And of course, I'll do some videos in the future as well as to how this is going to affect us. So it looks like I got some work cut out for me early next year to figure out how exactly to get this working, setting up the schedules on the cars to only charge during off-peak hours, and making sure that we do our best to try to save as much electricity, which in turn will save us a lot more money. And I will be releasing a video very soon on my 4 years with solar, so make sure you stay tuned to the channel for that. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button down below as well, because what I'm going to be doing is showing you the amount of money that I have saved being a solar customer over the course of just 4 years, and then I show you what that can save over the course of the next 20 years, because keeping in mind that most solar panels and solar equipment usually have about a 25-year warranty on them. But this is a pretty cool subject. I really enjoy this stuff, and I hope you do too. So make sure, once again, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe, hit that like button down below, support the channel, and we'll continue to support the grid as well from here. But anyway, I'd like to thank all of you very much for watching this episode. Let me know down below as well, are you having increase rates in your electricity as well? Are you seeing these increase, and what are those increases like? Are they significant, or are they kind of just a little bit just to adjust and balance out the scale of, you know, population and electric cars and the other people around you? Anyway, leave down in the comments. I'm curious to hear what you think. Anyway, thanks again for watching today's episode, and we'll see you on the next one. And remember, welcome to the future, and welcome to tech motoring. We'll see you soon.